Watching the afternoon edition of Newsfeed with me, Lindi, Sirame. Let's continue our discussion now on the issue of road safety with my guest from the Automobile Association, Layton. Be it Layton, I wish I was your colleague.
Yeah, likewise.
Let's speak about the Sustainable Development Goal. One
Yes.
of the targets was to halve road deaths by the year 2020. Is this reachable?
Well, it's not going to happen in South Africa, certainly. I think what we've seen over the last couple of years, unfortunately, is that road deaths have increased year on year, the only exception being 2018. In 2017, we saw around 14,921 deaths. In 2018, we've seen a reduction of about 1,000 in that number. So it's come down, but in the preceding years, unfortunately, it went up. We've seen around about, in the past decade, 140,000 deaths on our roads. So the number certainly hasn't come down, and it definitely hasn't halved. So when you consider that 2020 is happening in, 7 or 8 days, it's not going to happen that we're going to halve that figure. There are new goals for 2030. I think that it would require a huge amount of effort from the government. We've spoken to government. I think we've also made quite a number of submissions to government. We're quite active in our advocacy in raising a lot of issues, and not only the Automobile Association. I think there are a number of organizations, international as well, and the government is part of a lot of different committees and groups in terms of road safety. There's a big conference happening next year that involves all African countries as well. So there is the message is out there. But I do think it is going to require a huge effort from government in terms of policing, in terms of law enforcement, in terms of education. But at the same time, I think it's also going to require a huge effort from the motoring. I say motoring public, but I'm talking about all road users, and I include in that pedestrians. And the figure that you gave earlier of the number of deaths in our country, unfortunately, 40% of those are still pedestrians. So pedestrians remain a hugely at-risk road user group, and that's something that needs quite a lot of attention. The AA has been involved in visibility campaigns around that issue. But it's going to take a massive drive from civil society, from the public, from the government, to actually achieve the new goals that have been set for 2030. We won't achieve the goals for 2030.
And I mean, Layton, when we speak of solutions, South Africans are known to love their liquor, right?
Right.
We abuse alcohol. That's what the statistics say. That's what research says. And one of the things we're seeing this festive season is even politicians who have gone to Twitter and their social media accounts to push this whole, zero alcohol in South Africa stance. We've seen alcoholic brands who have jumped onto that same bandwagon, not exactly zero alcohol, but, the drinking and driving aspect of that.
Yes.
Is the issue of alcohol one of the things we need to solve in order for us to see a decrease in the number of people dying on our deaths, and that includes the pedestrians?
It certainly does. I think not the issue of alcohol per se, but the issue of alcohol use and road usage. Certainly, unfortunately, we are still seeing a lot of people who are drinking and driving. And the AA's message is it's not don't drink and drive. Our message is drink or drive. So we are calling basically for people who are going to be driving, or even pedestrians who will be walking in poorly lit areas where there is a lot of traffic. Don't drink and walk, because it's equally dangerous, especially when you consider that you may be walking in an area that is very poorly lit, or whatever the case is, and the road may be bad or whatever. So yes, I think there has been a push towards dealing with this issue of drinking and driving, but again, I think it's very seasonal. We think that these types of campaigns of, drink or drive, or don't drink and drive, should be happening all year round. And then there is a stigmatization that needs to happen around drinking and driving. It should be socially unacceptable. And the public needs to be aware of the fact that if you drink and drive, not only are you breaking the law, but hey, we actually don't want to, we don't want to associate with you. And yet there is still this feeling amongst many, many drivers that it's okay to have 4 or 5 drinks before you get into the car. And, people will drink heavily for an evening and then have 2 hours or 3 hours of sleep, and then wake up and think, okay, well, now I'm okay to drive. And they're not really okay to drive. And you can take whatever medication you want that you think is going to get that alcohol out of your body. The only thing that gets alcohol out of your body is time. So if you have been drinking, you've got to wait until that alcohol is out of your body. And depending on how much you've been drinking, it may take longer to get out of your body. So yes, I think that there is a problem with drinking and driving in South Africa. It's certainly something that we think needs a lot more attention. and it needs to be dealt with a lot more effectively. And when we look at people who have been arrested for drinking and driving, and we applaud the authorities for arresting these people, and it's good that they are arrested, I think what we would like to see is justice being done. We want to see what happens to those people who have been arrested for drinking and driving, what penalties they've given, and the public needs to be aware that if you drink and drive, it's not a pleasant experience, and the penalties are very harsh.
Absolutely. What do we do in the interim then, while government is still trying to find these solutions to these issues? What can we, as civil society, maybe suggest to them? Because you find, especially amongst the younger crowd, younger drivers and people who have just, started drinking.
Yes.
To them, it's cool. I mean, you can tweet about how, if I eat a certain sweet, they won't be able to pick up the alcohol in the breathalyzer.
Right.
Sharing stories of how, I thought I was going to be arrested for drinking and driving, but I got away.
Yeah.
And to them, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, there is that unfortunate element to it. I think, again, when it comes to young children or to younger drivers, there needs to be, again, the socially unacceptable nature of our interaction with them. And we need to explain to them that, look, it's not cool to do what you're doing, because not only are you putting your own life in danger or the lives of your passengers, but you potentially are going to become a killer if you do have a crash with another vehicle, or if you knock down a pedestrian. So, and believe me, being arrested for that and being put in jail is certainly not cool. So you may try your luck. But if your luck runs out and you are eventually caught up with, your Twitter feed is going to be decidedly uncool because you're going to be wearing orange overalls. So I think that's the message that needs to get through to younger drivers. There is a huge need, as we said earlier, for education. And that education needs to happen at a young level, at pre-primary level. What are street signs? What are road signs? And it needs to be gradually increased to when children are actually driving. And this message needs to be repeated and reinforced over and over and over and over again. And there needs to be a lot of peer pressure, not only from adults, and not only from the government, and not only from, people like you and me, the media and civil society, but the friends of these children who are drinking and driving need to say, hey, I'm not going to get into the car with you. I'm not going to drive with you when you are drunk. Or even if you aren't drunk, but you've had 2 or 3 drinks, you're over the legal limit, I can't put my life in danger, because that's essentially what you're doing. If you've got a friend who's had a couple of drinks and you're getting into the car with them, you're putting your life into the hands of somebody who should not be driving that vehicle. And that's a very important message. So I think it's a combination of different things. And again, I think this message of, if you do drink and drive and you get arrested, this is the punishment, that needs to be clarified, and it needs to be repeated over and over as well.
Sure. Layton, I just want us to stop and get viewer reaction on this topic. Let's take a look at what people have been saying on Twitter regarding the festive season as well as road safety. Here's a tweet from Jay, which says, Fikile Mbalula is blaming cars coming over the border for the high road accident fatality rate, but the stats says alcohol and speed are the major causes. #road safety. Let's take a look at what else is being said. Brahloni is saying 589 people have died in 23 days in a country where there is no war. #arrive alive. Another tweet coming in that says, this hit home. Let's all be responsible on the roads and remember that there's other road users too, some skilled and some still learning. So always take precautions. The final tweet comes through, says, always assume you're the only sane driver on the road. Be careful and observe road safety rules. I think you'll agree with some of those tweets.
I'd like to give those last 3, certainly I'd like to give them a pat on the back and say hallelujah. We have some amazingly obedient, good, honest drivers out there, people who obey the rules of the road, and we've seen some really good examples of that. And big ups to these guys for spreading that road safety message. I think, kudos to them for doing it. It's great that they're doing that. Unfortunately, when we've got 1,000 great drivers, it only takes one to kind of destroy the stats and to make it look bad for everybody else. So it's really incumbent upon us as responsible adults, as people who understand that we have an obligation when we're on the road to get that message to the other drivers out there as well. It's not an easy task, but we all have a role to play. Unfortunately, I think that there is this perception amongst drivers or road users in South Africa that government is going to solve everything. You know, government must give us the laws, government must set the parameters for us, government must do whatever, they must enforce it, they must punish us, government, government, government. And yes, government has a huge role to play, and you mentioned it in your intro as well. But government has to police us, and us being citizens of this country. And unless the citizens of this country also play their role, and do, as these guys have said, you know, obey the rules of the road, be courteous to other drivers, respect everybody else. You know, government's efforts can, you know, be as amazing as they want. Unless people buy into that and start doing it for themselves, you know, the situation won't change, unfortunately.
Absolutely. There's so much more I want us to speak about, but we are running out of time. What I want us to do before we wrap up is to really equip and remind our viewers on, you know, things that they need to be doing before they their various travel destinations. Quick tips, Layton.
Get a good night's rest, stop every 2 hours or 200 kilometers, make sure your car's in a good condition, make sure your tires are in a good condition. The most critical piece of equipment on your vehicle or in your vehicle when you are driving is your attitude. Make sure your attitude is good for the road, make sure you are prepared to share the road with other road users, obey the rules of the road, be respectful of other drivers, and be courteous. You know, if there are people in front of you who need to get into your lane, don't speed up. You know, be courteous to other drivers, and make the trip part of make the journey part of your vacation. Stop along the way, smell the roses. You're on holiday, for goodness sake, so enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Beard, he's the AA spokesperson, speaking to us about road safety and really giving us tips on what to do as we embark on our long journeys to our travel destinations, and what to do when you're coming home come January. Well, let's take a quick ad break. We'll be back with more news.
You run, comrades?
Yeah, I do.
Mohammed,
Fahim,
how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Did you bring us toys? Welcome back. Well, Hemleys, the iconic 259-year-old toy brand, has just opened a first-of-its-kind play experience store that's in Fourways Mall. The store boasts a play area and a Hemleys cafe. The arrival of the brand in South Africa in 2015 has given consumers a new retail experience. Hemleys' unique approach encourages children and adults to engage with the products, giving them a full sensory play experience. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by the director at Hemleys, Fahim Mohammed. Fahim, thank you so much for joining us. I did ask you if you bought us toys. You said you didn't, but it's fine.
I wasn't told to bring you anything, but next time I will.
Tell us a bit about the new store in Fourways Mall.
Yes, so we've tried to bring something first of its kind in South Africa. There's a Hemleys World of Play, which has a completely different element to it.